Yeah, well, it's nice to finally actually see you in person. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you, so when did you do your fine art degree? You didn't study that back in the day then?
No, not at all, not at all.
How's your route been to being an
So I
artist?
did. I was always interested in art, but I went to a grammar school, and of course, the focus. You did art if you couldn't do Latin,
Yeah.
or if they didn't,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
did
yeah.
Latin. And but I always really liked it, but I had no self-confidence. So I did art to A level, and that was fine, and I did well, and I had every intention of going on to art school then. But I also wanted to leave home. And in order to leave home, I needed money.
Mm.
And I was offered a great opportunity to join, well, it's now Unilever. It was a different organization at the time, but it was taken over by Unilever when I was working there. And I took that route. And I think that a lot of that was almost excuses that I made to myself. I just don't think I was ready personally to put myself out there. And I think that was the thing. I think for me, when I was a teenager and doing art A level, it was very much about that was the place I could escape to. And it felt incredibly personal. And I didn't want anybody to see that.
Okay.
I wasn't ready to then show that work and say, this is me. So I lacked the self-confidence. That's the fundamental reason why I didn't do it then. And then I think, I then had a career, and I sort of went around the world with my husband, and raised a family and did all of those normal things. And but always, wherever we went in the world, I would always seek out a life drawing class, or so there was always something. And then I dabbled in interior design, and which it was, there was always a creativity that kind of drove me. And when I moved, we lived in China, and we moved back from China about 13, 14 years ago. And my children were quite young, and I did my usual. I went and joined an art class. And it was an art class run by an artist called Daphne Vaughan. And I would go every sort of couple of weeks and have a lovely time. And I think to a lot of the women, it was very much a social thing. You would go and have coffee and chats and make pretty things. But for me, I found I didn't want to go and have coffee and talk to them. I didn't want to talk to the other people. I just wanted to make the work. And I just found myself becoming more and more consumed. And I turned around to Daphne one day and said, well, I think basically I sort of explained my history and how I'd actually wanted to go to art school, but didn't have the confidence then. And she just looked at me and said, just do it now. And I thought, why not?
It's one of the things about being an artist. I always think that at least I didn't want to be an Olympic athlete,
Yeah.
It would definitely be too late.
Yes, there is an advantage, isn't there? You can come to it later.
Big advantage.
And so I did a foundation year, and then I went, and that consumed me, and I sort of forgot about my small children and everything else, and I just worked 24 hours a day, and absolutely loved it, and knew that I wanted to go on and do a degree in fine art. And again, I think the reason for me for going to art school was, I needed to feel I was in an educational establishment to give myself that confidence to do this. So I went off and did my degree, and I finished that degree in 2016. So it was 2013 to 2016, and it was full time.
Wow.
And I loved it. I loved everything about it. It was really, really hard. I wouldn't say that art school is necessarily a very supportive environment, but it's a very challenging environment, and it meant that it challenged me. And because right from my first year, the head of our first year was very good in terms of I think on day one, he said, so you are here because you're artists. And he said, you have to use that word. You have to say, I am an artist.
It's amazing how many people I know struggle with that.
Absolutely. And he just sort of drummed that into us. And I think we'd been there for 2 weeks, and he said, right, we're having an exhibition on Friday on this project work. And we had to put up and it was done very professionally. We had to put up the exhibition, and we did that every 2 weeks. And so by the end of the first year, I'd completely lost all of my nerves and lack of confidence in terms of producing something and showing it. You know, it was just, that's what we did. And so I think it was a very good experience for me in terms of getting over that sort of emotional block, really.
Why do you think people do struggle, artists, so many people do struggle with calling themselves artists?
I think because I think it's still, well, I think it's hard for me to answer for everybody else, but I think for me, because it always felt a bit of a luxury.
Yeah.
It felt
like indulgence.
Indulgent. Yeah. I think I need to work. I am not in a position where I can't work. I need to help to support my family. And I think I think a lack of belief. I really hope that's changing. I don't know whether that's indicative of our age group. And I think with women particularly, I think that's very hard. And I think that's why I hugely admire some female artists who, I would say, one of the artists that I massively am full of admiration for is Louise Bourgeois, who was born in 1911 and was really the precursor to Tracy Emin. So, in fact, Tracy Emin, towards the end of Louise Bourgeois' life, Tracy Emin did some collaborative work with her. And she put her soul on the page, really raw work in the way that Tracy Emin does. Except she was born in 1911. And you think, what an incredible woman to actually have that belief and that confidence to do that in what then was an incredibly male-dominated environment. And I think that also applies to me. I don't think I was raised to even consider that I could be an artist. That wasn't I wasn't raised to think like that. Today, I really hope that that's changing, and I've certainly made sure with my own daughter that that isn't the case.
So do you think it's harder for women to claim their, I don't know, loads and loads of women are artistic, aren't they? It's just, you've only got to go out into society to see that. So I wonder why it seems harder for women to, certainly as you say, of our generation, I don't know about the next generation, claim that identity in a way.
I do think there is an element of, in terms of our generation, I think as a woman, we're the nurturers, we're the main family, I think it's hard because I think as an artist, as a professional artist, you have to be incredibly single-minded. And I think to a large extent, I think you have to be quite selfish, and I think that is at odds with a mother, with a woman.
Yeah.
With our female psyche that we were raised to believe we were supposed to be. And again, I think that's changing, thank goodness. And so I think certainly for me, that was the case. And I still struggle with that. I still struggle with basically they saying, I'm sorry, I can't deal with this. I have to go and do this.
I think especially if there's no immediate financial reward for it.
Absolutely.
So I mean that's the difficulty, isn't it? I think as well for a man or a woman, probably it's like, oh, I'm going to go off and do this, but actually I'm not going to be earning any money for at least 4 years. So
it's very, very different.
Running that. Yes. Yeah.
Very hard.
Very
hard.
It is hard, and I mean I have met plenty of men as well who couldn't go to art school because they were having to provide for their family. So. But I do think there's a particular feeling for women, I don't know, maybe, in that there isn't that history of women artists. I mean, there is a history of women artists, of course. But
there's a history.
It's not as rich.
There's a history of women artists. It's just they're not visible. So it's how they've been portrayed in books, in the media, but there are as many female artists as there were men. It's just they didn't have the visibility. They were invisible. And I think that's why, again, I suppose that's one of the things that I really enjoyed about being at art school, was the fact that I got that opportunity to research all of that and to look at them and realize that, oh, I can do this, I can be this. This isn't a male dominated environment at all. It's just, we are not visible. And I think that's changing enormously, which is fantastic.
So when you went to art school and you had this new identity, I am an artist,
yes,
thinking in,
yes,
what changed at art school for you? I mean, how have you found your style, your focus now, and
yes,
how did you find it? I think I'm interested in how artists find their voice. So how do you think you settle into that?
I think, honestly, I think by showing up. So I think at university or art school, it is not about finding your voice. I personally feel that during those 3 years, you're positively encouraged to try every experimentation, and so you should. And then when I left, and I think that for me, it was a case of showing up, making work every single day, being in the studio every single day, reading, looking at other people's work, really trying to define what it is that I wanted to say, the type of artist I wanted to be. And that has taken time. And I would say that took me 3 years, really, to get to that point. So 3 years on from art school. So I would say now I'm very focused. Now I know what I want to do. Now I just don't have enough time to do it.
What are you making now? So I can see some paintings behind you.
Oh goodness, yeah, it's very much a working studio. I think that so what I'm doing, what I realised is that for me, it works really well if I work in series. So I have an idea, and then I make a series of paintings exploring that idea. So that, I think that was the first.
What would the idea be? So an example of what would the idea be?
So let's go back a bit. So not what I'm currently doing, but last year and the year before, I was really captivated by the idea of a world without borders. And I think it was, obviously we were getting an awful lot about the refugees, and I was really taken with this idea that actually, I am very lucky to be born here in the UK. And it's not a privilege, it's actually a luck. It's just luck. There's nothing that makes me any different to somebody that was born in Syria, just the luck of where I was born. And I think I found it, I think I'm an idealist, and I think I like the idea of the world being available to everybody, and I'm not nationalistic. I don't subscribe to the idea that this is our country, you know, for us. I think it should be available to all. And I read a book called The Songlines by Bruce Chatwin, and he was exploring and about the Aboriginal people in Australia and how they map Australia through singing, and they call it the dreaming. And I just loved this concept, and I loved this idea of looking down from above. So you know, I started looking at satellite photographs, for example, and which are amazing, and you looking at land masses, and you know, and therefore you're seeing, you know, a whole country, and you're not seeing these borders, these enforced borders. So I then started making a series of work about that, and through making that series, and I decided to work in oils, which is something that I felt I didn't have an enormous amount of experience in, and I absolutely adored it, and worked on this for about 1.5 years really, and just kept making work, just kept making different work. How does it make me feel? And so that was one series, and then through that I realized that I have an absolute obsession with skies and horizons, and I've always been somebody who needs to be by the sea. You know, even when I've lived in landlocked places, I have, you know, I'd happily drive 4 hours just to be on a beach. And I think really I realized that for me it was this idea of freedom, because when you're on a beach, you know, it's vast, it's you're looking out and you've got this sky and this horizon line, and it's all about freedom and the possibility and this lack of constraint. And I think my sort of moment last year was, yeah, actually you're a landscape painter. That's it.
You say that as if you come kind of almost in a circle, driving back to the same spot. Yeah.
So I love doing life drawing. I've taught life drawing, for example. I love the human form. I'm drawn to all of that. I've done that. But it's not what fills my soul in terms of making work. And I thought, fine, just go with that. You know, this is you. So it came through this process of exploration, really, of looking down, and now I'm looking out. And I also really identified that it's not fields and trees that I'm interested in, and I'm not interested in representing the landscape in a photorealist way, as much as I hugely admire artists that do that. It's not for me. It's not what I'm trying to say. For me, it's about a feeling. It's about the feeling that you get when you're standing on a beach and you've got the stormy sea and you've got the salt going over you and the spray. And so it was more about trying to make landscape paintings that express that. I moved to Wales at the beginning of this year and was absolutely blown away. We moved here because of my husband's job, so it wasn't that we chose to come here. I left Hampshire, which had been fantastic for all of us, and had many friends, and we moved to this place. We're about 13 miles southwest of Cardiff in the Vale of Glamorgan, and we moved here, and I had no idea that there was this absolutely spectacular heritage coastline, sort of 6 miles from where we've got a house. And it's incredible. And it was, I just thought, this is amazing. And I'm so lucky, because now I can access my inspiration, if you like, every single day. And so now I am really focusing on doing a series I've called it the Heritage Coast series, for my benefit, really, more than anybody else's. And that's what it's all about. The other thing that coincided with this finding my focus was I joined 2 artist friends on a residency at Bryson Veal in Cornwall. Have you heard of
that? Bryson?
So, Bryson Veal, so it's Brisonveor, 2 words. And it's actually just down from St Just. You can see Land's End from Bryson Veal. Okay. Now at Bryson Veal, it's basically, you've got the little cove, which is Priest's Cove, and it's almost must be the house that is the artist residency must be almost probably one of the most southwesterly houses, you know, in that point. You're almost on Land's End. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And I was only able to join my 2 artist friends there for 2 days. And so I thought, well, you know, I'm not going to be able to make paintings. You know, I've got 2 days. I thought I'll just take a sketchbook and just take some minimal materials and a sketchbook. And I loved it. And I just walked the coastline and went to these various spots and worked in a small little sketchbook, and realized that I'd lost my way in terms of working in a sketchbook, because again, going back to art school, your sketchbook was not about drawing. It was a place to put your thoughts. You were encouraged to write. So it was all writing. And I'd kind of fallen out of working in a sketchbook. And
journaling in a way.
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
It was very much more journaling at art school. And so I'd fallen out of this methodology, I suppose, of working in a sketchbook. And I realized that this is really important to me and my process, because as much as I don't make a sketch, I might sit on a beach and I might draw something in a realistic fashion. My intention is not to then go back to the studio and use that as any kind of plan for a painting. But if I sketch, I see, you know, I look in a way that taking a photograph for me just doesn't have the same effect. So if I've made a sketch or if I've drawn a person, when I get back to the studio, it takes me, and I look at that sketch, it takes me right back to that moment. And that for me was a turning point, an absolute turning point, because I could then look at that sketch, I could remember being in that moment, I could remember the feeling that I had when I was there, and that unleashed everything. Because I'm after trying to capture the feeling, I had thought it was going to be purely abstract. But actually, I find myself drawn to making sort of more semi-abstract paintings alongside the abstract ones. And I think it's just because it's just so beautiful. I just can't help myself. I find myself putting in that sea or that cliff.
Is there a dilemma in you about wanting to produce abstract? Is there some sort of tension between, am I painting abstract or semi-abstract at all?
I not now, no. I think they used to be, because there's so much stuff about finding your style and all the rest of it, but not now, no. Because I think my work now, or I've been told that my work is it's very much me. It's very identifiably me, whether it's abstract or semi-abstract. You can see it's me, because I do tend to use similar colours for things. I have a palette that I'm drawn to.
There's a pressure on people to either be abstract or figurative, or you must fix your style, you must fix on this.
You must not. I don't believe you should. I think your style actually evolves as you evolve as an artist, and I think that you will be drawn to a particular way of painting or particular marks that excite you. And I don't think it's necessary at all to define your style. I think, however, it is really important to get your focus. So I'm not coming in and doing an abstract painting of the Heritage Coast and then going off and doing a big watercolor of a body. You know, I'm not. I used to, because of what we said, which was I was so interested in all of it. And this was my problem. You know, I found it very difficult to just be focused on that one thing. Whereas now, no, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm trying to say. This is the series that I'm working on. And this is what I'll explore. And if that turns into more semi-abstract, that's fine. There's a place for that. If that turns into more abstract, that's fine also. I think it's about getting to a point where you stop worrying about other people's perception or other people viewing the work. You're actually just making the work, and you're making the work using your voice, and it's not about whether it will sell even. And I think once you can get to that point and just put all of that chatter almost in your head to one side and just focus on what am I trying to say here? What do I want to do? Then you're off. And as I say, that took me 3 years.
What's your take on galleries, having done the courses you've done and taking your year? Are you wanting to get back into galleries, and or are you confident? You know, I think some people have become almost like, oh no, I'm going to do this myself now. I don't really need a gallery. So where are you on all of that?
You know what, I think that it's funny. I think when you very first start, you're a little bit obsessed with, I've got to get my work in a gallery. And I think that's more to do with validating yourself as a as a professional artist. You know, it's sort of like, if I get my you know, if I get my work in a gallery, then that means I must be a professional artist, you know. So I think that's more about
like having the teacher say, yes, you've got an A+ there.
Exactly that. So I and I was no different. So when I left art school, I absolutely felt, you know, for that first year when I was at Newlyn doing the mentoring course, I thought, I have to get in a gallery. And then I realized, actually, you know what, I don't need the personal validation now. I've kind of moved on from that, and I don't want to put myself in a position where I'm going to a gallery until I have a strong body of work. And you need, you know, ideally 15 to 25 paintings to be approaching a gallery. There is no point in approaching a gallery with one painting. You know, you need a body of work. And because I have been constantly exploring, you know, I just have, and I've sold as well. So I've just, you know, I keep thinking, you know, and I'm not in a position, if somebody comes along and says, I really want to buy that painting, I can't sort of say, oh no, I'm saving it so that I can have a body of work to approach a gallery. So the time hasn't been right for me to actively go out and seek a gallery. And I think because I was really, really lucky, and through the national, I was shortlisted for the National Graduate Award, and that meant that I got representation by art consultants in London. And that was great, because that was a sort of a halfway step almost. And so now I'm in a position, and now it's so interesting because now so many artists are choosing not to go to a gallery, because if they don't go to a gallery or they don't put their work in a gallery, they still make the same amount of money, but they're in control of their pricing more. And I think that was tied up in my decision as well to hang back a little bit, because I didn't believe in my work enough to start saying, well, I'm going to charge £2,500 for that. And it has to be a much higher price in a gallery, because obviously the gallery needs to make their money.
Takes half.
So, you know, all of a sudden your work is going higher. And the absolute golden rule is you can't undercut your gallery. So if you've got a painting that's 50 by 50 centimeters and it's in a gallery and it's £1,500, and then one of your contacts or friends of friends comes along and says, oh, I'd love that 50 by 50, you know, you need to
do me a deal. Yes. Yeah.
You can't do that. That's, you know, undercutting your gallery. So, you know, my feeling now is I am ready to go to a gallery, but I really feel very motivated in this period to concentrate on the developing this series. And once I get to that position and I've got that strong body of work that I really believe in, then I will go out and get a gallery, because I do believe there is a place for galleries. I think that very much so, because if I had a gallery representing my work and my work was there, I could then maybe concentrate a little, it might free me up a bit more to do actually what I really want to do, which is make the work.
Yes. I think they earn, personally, I think they earn their money as well, actually, because everybody
I'm very happy. I'm very happy.
Take half. And I said, have you tried putting on a show? It's a lot of work. You know, it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. And so I do believe there is a place. And also there is a place for having your work in the world, you know, having your work out there where somebody off the street can come in and see that, rather than somebody that you had to work very hard on Instagram to get to follow you, to then go to your website. You know, I think that that's great, you know. So I think there's definitely a place for galleries, but I think when you first start, as I say, I think it's about that, more about validation for you, and that's not the right reason to approach a gallery. And I think that, you know, I mean, I've sort of said to myself, you know, I know that I'm very ready now, and I will do it hopefully when COVID, you know, when we, there's no point at the moment. For me, there's no point. I'll just focus on making the work and getting that body of work together. I would say to people, don't rush it, you know, take your time and go out and approach galleries when you're really, really comfortable with yourself, you know, because before that, I think it can be quite exposing, and, you know, if the work doesn't sell, then you feel a bit rubbish. And I think if you believe in the work yourself and you feel very positive about that, then you're much in a better position to say, just the right person didn't go in. You know, whereas I think when we first start and we're trying to sell work and it doesn't sell. I remember my first art fair, oh, it was awful. My stand looked dreadful. It looked like a jumble sale. You know, I threw everything talking about this. Oh, I love doing bodies, and I loved it. Oh, I put everything on there.
And see, so somebody likes some. See, let's see what, almost like you know, like a tasting session, isn't it? Let's see if anybody buys this type.
Yeah, because I paid all this money. You know, as an artist going to an art fair, you know, you'll often your exposure is probably about £1,400. That's so you've already paid that out. And, you know, so there is this tendency, I think, to fill your stand with everything because, you know, you've got to get your money back, let alone make a profit. And then, of course, I got to the end of my first art fair and I think I'd sold the sum total of 2 prints. So I was hugely out of pocket. And also, I was devastated, absolutely devastated, because I took it as if I'm rubbish. Nobody liked my work. I'm rubbish. Whereas now, if I do something, it's still hard because, you know, you've paid out a lot of money for that. And it's still hard to not have somebody. But now I'm very much in the camp of the right person just didn't see it. The person that was going to love it just didn't walk past.
It's tricky what to do with your old work that you aren't in love with anymore and you've moved on. But
well, no.
To buy it.
I think if you have got old work that you're not in love with anymore, paint over it.
Yeah,
don't hang
people.
Just don't, you know, why, just move on, paint over it. In fact, it's only the work that I did for the New Lynn show that I really don't like, and I can't paint over it because I used so many different textures and I used some resin and you can't really do anything with it.
No,
but I will. I mean, they're sitting there in my studio in the storage racks, sort of taunting me almost, because I hate them.
Bonfire?
Pardon? Bonfire.
Although you can't burn the resin. Maybe.
Yeah. I'll find a way. I'll find, you know, when the mood takes me, I'll find a way. And I think it's actually, you know, so I don't hang on to old work.
Right. Okay. So I thought I'd end with some shorts. So, what's your favourite colour?
Blue.
Which blue?
All hues of blue. I don't have an absolute favourite. I love blue.
Which is more important, colour, line, or design?
Colour.
Big or small? I know the answer.
Big.
Sketchbook and planning, or develop as it goes and more intuitive?
Sketchbook essential, but not for planning. So sketchbook essential for me, but not planning. No, very intuitive.
What marks do you love to make in particular that feel really you?
Big ones. Big marks.
How do you feel when you paint?
Free.
Who's your favourite artist?
I just counter that one.
Yeah.
Free. But there is always that sort of, you know, there can often be a sense of great frustration as well.
Who is your favourite artist? Maybe one dead, one living, or?
I have to just mention a few, but I'll give you why briefly. So James Turrell for light. How he uses light, I think, is incredible, eye-opening. Louise Bourgeois, as I said before, for the fact that she was such a brave inspiration to women everywhere, and she produced a piece of art that literally made me breathless, and I had to walk out of the exhibition because it moved me so much that it was almost too much, and I had to leave and then go back and look at it. And it was a little sculpture, and I think her work is just brave. I admire her. Turner for his use of colour. Kurt Jackson, who's a landscape painter. I am so full of admiration for Kurt Jackson for sticking to his guns in terms of saying, I am going to be a landscape painter. This is what I am going to do, when his contemporaries were the YBAs. I think that is fantastic. You know, to have that strength of conviction is something just fabulous.
Best thing about being an artist?
I suppose being the freedom to express yourself in something other than your voice or the written word. I think that being an artist allows you to express your innermost feelings, and I find that liberating.
If you weren't an artist, what would you be?
That's really difficult because I would immediately want to say a textile designer, but of course they're artists, so
yes, that's cheating.
Yeah, I think something like a wedding planner. I'd like the adrenaline rush.
What do you hope the viewer will see or feel when they look at your work?
For me, it's not about trying to get them to see what I'm feeling. All I want is for a viewer to be moved in some way. Whether that is, I just adore that colour combination, that's fine. As long as they get something from looking at my work, I'm very happy.
Is there anything else you would like to add?
The only thing I would like to add, I suppose, is I think for me, I think that it's about, I do believe this, I think it's about showing up. I do think that I think it's about just doing something, trying to make something, trying to draw something, just making marks. And I think if you do that and you get into a routine of making time in your life to do that on a regular basis. And then I think that the work grows, and I think you will grow, and it will become more and more absorbing for you. And I'm hugely admiring of anybody actually that puts something out there, you know, puts it into the world. If it's a picture on Facebook or Instagram, I admire that, because it takes guts. You know, it's not easy.
No.
As they say, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, wouldn't they? I think at my daughter's school, the headmistress would say, feel the fear and do it anyway. And I think that's what it is in a nutshell. And I think if it ever gets easy, then you're not pushing yourself hard enough.
It's time to be a wedding planner and make it just that bit harder.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So, but thank you. Do you edit the interviews?
I will edit, yeah, don't worry.
That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect if you edit. I was thinking, oh my goodness.
No, don't worry, it doesn't have to be perfect.
I think about expressing feelings of freedom and space and joy. And if somebody were to feel that from looking at my work, gosh, I think I'd feel like I'd won the lottery.